So the group's called Ocean Grove Coast Care, and we started about 7 years ago now, back in 2010. And initially we came about because there was a group of us that were all sort of younger and in our early careers in the environment field, and we realised that we were all living locally in Ocean Grove, and there was probably an outlet for a coast care group where we could come together and bring in other like-minded people to get involved in conservation here in our backyard. But since then we've done quite a few other things. We've done some revegetation work. We've done a lot of community education events, so we've had annual plant giveaways where we've given away Indigenous plants, encouraging people to put them in their backyard rather than the ornamental plants that end up escaping into the dunes. We've done a number of rubbish or beach litter cleanups. We've always done Clean Up Australia Day. We have film nights which show conservation related films, and more recently we've started a plastic bag free campaign in Ocean Grove. So the target species that we've been focusing on for the weed removal work has been Polygala, which is also known as bellarine pea and is really quite prolific through the dunes.
This property is Yan Yan Gert West. It's a 580 acre property, and it's a family farm, and our main production is prime lambs and wool, and we take in just some cattle as well, and agroforestry is part of the management system, so there have been some products coming from the trees as well. Really, that 17% vegetation is there as a bonus because it's actually supporting the farming system, not replacing it, and it's giving those multiple values. We think of it as a biological infrastructure to see the farm through as a good property for them.
And with the farm, well, our girls are all interested in coming and doing their own thing on the farm, and we think that's fantastic. And I think part of the reason for that is we have made it such a beautiful place to live now. There's a lot of trees on this place. Over 40,000 trees have been planted in the last 20 years, and it's now a really beautiful place.
So I think a part of how this all works is the fact that we're all supportive of each other. We all have our own passions and interests, but they all tie together really well, and they all have a kind of common goal. We're all super keen on looking after the land and having community to do that.
I'm really interested in the agriculture stuff, and Hannah's interested in both the agriculture but also the sort of wildlife and education, and then Michelle and Nick are really into natural building and community. And so that all really ties in together into something that we can do here.
We're really trying to set it up here so that we're living the way that we think is the most sustainable and the best for us and the best for the earth. And then, we already have farm tours and things like that, and we're already showing people what we're doing, but there's so much more we could do, which is what we're all working on, and to really set it up as an example for people to come and see.
So I first went out to a Landcare meeting primarily for selfish reasons. I was looking for opportunities to get on-ground experience with local plants and local landscapes, and so I was a little bit tenuous. I didn't know whether Landcare would be my natural fit or not. It's been a wonderful enrichment for my teaching because I've had lots and lots of opportunities to take students to real places and meet real landholders, and also to work. So I teach in the TAFE sector, and I've been teaching there for about 15 years, and previously I've taught in conservation and land management, but I've switched across to horticulture locally, and lately much more specialist work in weed control. And so I'm really enjoying getting the horticulture students to think about the impacts of the horticultural industry and horticultural weeds, and using the knowledge that we learn in restoration and plant management in the horticultural context. So
been here since about the mid-60s, which is over 50 years now, but before that I had a property over right up at the foot of Mount Warren Heap, which I've since repurchased back again since those days. And I've joined up with the Landcare when it commenced, which is 25 years ago, I think. So I've been an active member as much as I could be since that time. We've traditionally been potato growers here. We originally grew for Rosella. They were taken over later on by McCain's, and then we grew for McCain's up until about 12 or 13 years ago. Actually, I had an accident which put me out of growing potatoes. Since then I've been looking for other industries, and we recent years got into growing pyrethrum, which we had, the first year didn't come up at all, so it wasn't very successful. The next year we had a wet spring and a wet summer, and it came up really well. And weeds are the major problem in growing pyrethrum. You've got a full-time job keeping the weeds out. You've got to spray flatweed separate from grasses, and of course in the springtime then you have the problem of fungus diseases as well.
Jonathan, Lockie and I, because we're living, or I still am, living on farms north of Birregurra, we were members of the Birregurra Creek Landcare Group. And the Birregurra Creek Landcare Group disbanded a few years ago because they were mainly set up to look after the water that was being put down the Birregurra Creek from Lake Colac, and that doesn't come down anymore. So, and a lot of people had planted a lot along the creek, so most of the re-veg work had been done along there anyway. And so yes, so we were sort of members. I've been, I suppose, involved in Landcare since its inception, and also through my work I worked with Landcare groups throughout the Corangamite region for quite a few years.
Concentrating on is the Barwon River and the tributaries coming into it in the Birregurra area, a lot of which have got heavy gorse contamination and blackberry contamination and some poplar contamination as well we've got down on the river itself. A lot's happened in 4 years, and the group's grown dramatically now. I think we're over 35 members. Yeah, so it's a terrific result, and everybody loves doing it. We work every single Tuesday, and everybody's a volunteer, so it's fantastic.
So I'm a Western District girl, grew up in the Red Gum country up near Harrow, and then went and did the stint in Melbourne, but then came back to Scotsburn area with my husband 23 years ago when we bought this 27 hectare property. 23 years ago I helped set up the Upper Williamsons Creek Landcare Group, and then we formed part of the Lee Catchment Group 20 years ago. For 11 years I worked as a project officer for the Lee Catchment Group, and now I'm chair of that group. So I've had a long continuous involvement with Landcare. I've learned so much of what I know through Landcare, everything from farming, pasture development, catchment management, biodiversity, landscape scale change, community development, and more recently community resilience in the wake of the Scotsburn fires. I love the fact that Landcare is a local movement, that it can't be tamed. I love the fact that every group is different, and that it really does arise from what individuals at the local level want to do. I think we've achieved great results in the 30 years of Landcare in Corangamite, and I think there's so much more potential to do so much more.